weight first and then you lose length. There's something more going on here. And it starts by virtually 1 month of life or early. So most likely, this is something that happens in utero that is playing itself out ex utero. One of the possibilities, and I'll show you some of the data in support of this, is that we're seeing short mothers, maybe obese, have relatively large babies, pushed by the insulin. Insulin, there's no growth hormone doing any length gain until 2 or 3 years of life. If there's a pediatric endocrinologist, he can correct me, but in fact, you don't do a growth hormone assay until around 3 or 4 years of life. You do an IGF-1 and you do an insulin. Those are the growth factors, and they're triggered by excess glucose. So we may be seeing larger babies because we have obese mothers, and those babies have been pushed postnatally. They are decelerating. If we just measure weight, we will never know. How many of you are pediatricians or nurses or health workers here in the room? How many? A few. Pediatricians? Very few. How many of you measure length routinely in every baby you see? Not many. Around the world, when I ask this question, not more than 10–15% of the pediatricians are measuring babies all the time in length. They always weigh them, but you will never find out who is stunted. You might even call somebody underweight and says he needs more calories if you just measure the weight. That is happening all over the world. So you have to identify stunting, and the only way you can identify stunting is to measure length. Do it yourself. So the point here is that if we want to get rid of stunting, we need to be better than saying, well, we'll find them at 6 months and we'll get them to grow. In fact, this is data in red from the studies of Guatemala from Reynaldo Martorell, and you can see in SD scores fixed. The only clear demonstration at the public health level where that length has improved through an intervention is the study of Dr. Juan Rivera in Mexico. And in his study, it was mainly those that received the micronutrients and the food supplements under 6 months, combined with their mothers also getting micronutrients. So if you start later, you will get people to gain weight, but not length. Look at the black. The black here represents data from the US from slave children. Slavery was prohibited in the US in terms of importation, but people that had slaves could keep them as slaves for a longer time. So children that were born had to be registered, and they had to be measured every year. And Dr. Steckel, an physical anthropologist, traced those studies, traced those data, several thousand children, and they're plotted in the black. And what this is showing is, in fact, that at the time of the puberty, there was a improvement in the length Z-score, and also into adulthood. Being a physical anthropologist, he gathered all of the social data, and what happened at age 8 to 10 is that children were taken to the field and were given a better diet. They were giving meat. And at age 17, they were giving money. They could buy their own food. So dietary quality improved significantly. So if you're zinc deficient, similarly to the Prasad data from Iran and from Egypt, you are able to improve your length. But this data, as I said, you will see in populations who migrate or adopted children, you will see that catch up, but it's at the expense of accelerated maturation. So you end up improving your length, but also speeding up your bone age. So you end up you end up shorter and slightly fatter. This is data from the 5 cohorts that have long-term follow-up published in the Lancet series, showing that if you were -3 as a girl, you will not measure much more than 1.6 meters. And if you're a boy, if you were -3 standard deviation as an adult, in the case of the females, you will be not much greater than 150 centimeters. So what you lost early on is parallel with the loss that you find at adult age. And this is the cohorts from Brazil, Guatemala, India, Philippines, and South Africa. So the Lancet series, it used to have just the short-term consequences, morbidity, disability. This is the UNICEF model. Somebody asked, how does this fit with the UNICEF model? The UNICEF model now has long-term consequences. Adult size, work capacity is linked to adult size, intellectual ability, earning power, economic productivity, reproductive performance, and diabetes and CVDs. The main killer diseases of today's world are now part of the long-term consequences. So this we need to disseminate so that we all are saying early malnutrition, long-term effects, long-term health cost. Let's do something about it. So this is what you already heard. We cannot claim causality. They are linked, and you could choose your favorite nutrient, zinc, or you could choose any of the protein quality or whatever it takes to improve linear growth as potentially responsible. The best thing to think about is good nutrition, a balanced diet, and providing all the essential nutrients. So we go to developing countries. If you go to my country, I'll show you some data. If you go to every place, what do we find? School children being fed and sometimes overfed in schools. 6 years, 10 years old, we get television, politicians say we are now feeding the children. Too late, too late. Moreover, most of the time they've not been measured in height. So they may be underweight, but they're not underweight for height. If you don't measure height, you will be overfeeding normal children who are stunted. And this is happening in my country, and I'll show you data. We started measuring height only in 1992. A lot of people say, and nutritionists say, don't measure height because you will make the problem smaller. Yes, people say don't measure height because there will be less malnourished. And that is something that we need to fix right now. If we don't do that, I'll show you what happens. This is what happens with malnourished children. This is data from 500 children, marasmic. You feed them, you say we want to fatten them up so when they go back, they'll have reserve. You're putting fat, but look at the length. The length is in the white. Only a 2 or 3% gain in the length. They're still stunted, but now they're stunted and obese. This is a community-based program that defined that children that were below minus 0.5 standard deviation, we should do something about it. And you can see that they gain weight for length, and a large effect on weight for length, but a minimal effect on length. These are children still, some of them might have been under 6 months, but the older children have very little to gain if you give them calories or if you give them even balanced foods, and you keep on giving them so that they will improve their weight. Somebody could even say that they're still, even on discharge, they're still underweight for age, but they're getting fat. This is data over a long period of time, and it's showing how, in red, height for age has improved in Chile. This cutoff is at 1 standard deviation. Weight for age, you can see that it's below that, and weight for height also. So the result of that is, seeing below, we have progressively fatter children. And until you measure height, you don't even notice. This is data from Mexico, similar to the data from Chile over the last 3 decades. Weight for age has come down, low weight for age, low height for age too, but look at obesity in the bottom for overweight and obesity in girls and adolescents and in women. So we're seeing this in developing countries, so we need to rethink who should be fed and how. This is data from a meta-analysis done by Dr. Cesar Victoria, showing that if you gain weight rapidly, you have a risk of getting obese, even if you are malnourished. This is population data from Chile. In '87, we said, okay, we have stunting. We have to do something about it. Obesity was only 3%. That's normal. We moved the height, very happy. Everybody was very happy. But look, also we moved the BMI. So we went from 3% to 12% to 21% right now of children at 6 years of age who are beyond 2 standard deviations. This is the data on obesity that I've just related to you, and it's going up and up. Luckily, WHO, EIA produced data, and FAO. How many of you have seen this report? Can you raise your hand? Have you seen it? This is a must. If you're interested in obesity, you have to read this. Lena is here, and she's very upset because she didn't notice, but not more than 5 people raised their hand. This is for free. It's not in Arabic, unfortunately. You need to make it translated. You now have Ala Dalwan as your head for the Middle Eastern region, and he's interested in prevention of chronic disease. Tell him that this needs to be translated in Arabic. This is what was going on in Chile, and March is the start of the school year. August and November, kids get measured. So as you can see here, all the cohorts were increasing during the school year in terms of obesity. We said, we now have new recommendations. Let's improve the diet, let's cut calories, and give them more vegetables. And this is what happened. In 2001, we reduced 100 calories from the meals. Take away the starch, take away the sugar. And you can see the upward trend is now going down. Follow the norms. There's also new norms for protein that are also lower, so you can give less and better quality. For breastfeeding, this is also from the EIA. Over the last 20 years, over 1,000 measurements have been taken. So now we can establish recommendations for breastfeeding. Breast milk will give you about 700 calories at top milk production. So you have to see at what stage the child needs more than that. In the past, in 1973, we gave 120 calories per kilo at 3 months. So we said the milk is insufficient from around 4 to 5 months. In 1985, we still didn't have doubly labeled water. We improved the way we approached this, so showing that it was a U-shaped curve over the years. So we said 4 to 6 months. But with this real data, if you now plot the mean and the 95% confidence interval, you can actually be feeding appropriately a child of up to about 7 kilos, which is a 6-month-old child, can be exclusively breastfed in terms of energy. After that, he definitely needs complementary food and micronutrients. So this is now strong data in support of exclusive breastfeeding coming from doubly labeled water. How many of you have heard about doubly labeled water? Okay, very good. Everybody that's in nutrition should hear about doubly labeled water. The whole recommendations for energy are now lower. This is an opportunity that you can give less but better quality. So in order to address some of these questions, in Chile we started a cohort, 1,000 children from 2002. We said, let's see what we can do better. We measure body composition. You'll hear a lot. We use electrical impedance. We use densitometry. We use isotope dilution, techniques that have been actually worked through the support of EIA. And we took then the mothers, this is low middle income at 1.56. Normal women should measure 1.64 on the average. And you can see smoking, diabetes, 5% declared, 20 to 40% with abnormal GGTs, preeclampsia, breastfeeding to 4 months, not too bad. And pregnancy weight gain, 12.4. Pre-pregnancy BMI, half of them were overweight at the time, even before pregnancy, half of them.